What's going on, people? Facebook family, how are you today? I'm just going to give a moment for people to kind of file on. And for those of you watching on replay, what's going down? My name's Dr.Nima Rahmany. I'm a chiropractor working part-time, translating into full-time practice with my coaching. And I help stressed, depressed, and anxious professionals transform and get powerfully aligned and have their best year ever. And one of these amazing questions that came up in my group, The Art of Powerful Alignment, has to do with the concept of imposter syndrome. And it's something that I know all too well, something that I help people with consistently. And I just wanted to share a few pearls with you because you might be going through it right now yourself. You might be having these feelings of, who am I to be making such a difference? Who am I? Thanks, Kelsey. God bless you. Who am I to be making such a difference? Who am I to step up, to play bigger, to serve? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of love. I'm the, that little voice of the dark passenger that pulls us down and prevents us from stepping up because I compare myself to all these other people and they got their shit together. They have more money. They look better. They're skinnier. They're thinner. Whatever story that you got going on is part of that voice of the dark passenger that contributes to the imposter syndrome that makes you feel that you're not good enough and not worthy of actually stepping up and serving and playing big. Well, I'd like to share a few nuggets with you so that you could actually move forward and step up and serve. And the first thing that I wanted to help you with is this concept. Number one is, in order for you to overcome imposter syndrome, hey, what's up, Heidi? In order for you to overcome imposter syndrome, we have to learn how to win the war of approval, not just with other people, but within ourselves. Because quite honestly, that little voice of the dark passenger that says, I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy to step up, usually comes from a past story about mom or dad where they were kind of embarrassed, or they had social anxiety, or they maybe had depression, or they have low self-esteem. And then in a moment of trigger or darkness, they made a comment towards you. They said things towards you. Maybe it was 4 or 5 times. I don't know. But I've heard this a lot in my clients. And what happens is those incidents that are isolated turn out to become this long ass story, this conclusion, this interpretation that you turn out to make about yourself that lends to you not actually having the right to step up and serve, because my mom told me I'm not good enough. My dad told me that you're too fat. My mom said this or that. And that gets implanted as a belief in our brain, and we carry it with us. We carry it with us week after week, month after month, year after year. And then the opportunity comes for you to step up and have a promotion at work, or perhaps you want to leave your job and start your own business, or a leadership position starts to show up, and then all of a sudden you want to step up, and the second that you decide to step up, boom, you get triggered, and it's like a burst of panic. It is a burst of absolute dread, because the voices of that dark passenger and that imposter syndrome step up, and it happens every single time you decide to raise the bar. There is a very high profile client that came to me who is making a massive difference in the world, who is actually making a big splash. She actually is on international stages and making a huge impact, and all of a sudden got a check, basically carte blanche, to do to keep promoting her work to the next level. And all of a sudden was grief-stricken, overcome with this incredible sense of imposter syndrome, this sense of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. And what happens is that's the voice of your dark passenger or imposter syndrome. Then the expression of that, you all of a sudden start to behave in weird ways. In her case, she started to really to do self-destructive behavior. It's an addiction that she had back when she was a teenager. She started doing self-destructive behavior. And then all of a sudden, she was bedridden for like 2 or 3 days because of the panic, the anxiety, the depression, and it all happened in the wake of her stepping up and raising the bar. Perhaps you can relate to that. I want you to think of a time in your life maybe where you were called on as a promotion. There was a move. It wasn't a lateral move. It was a move up. It was a step up. Or you were like either promoted, you landed a gig that was, something that was kind of scaling up or leveling up. Anytime you leveled up, boom, just realize that those voices, you will be confronted with everything from your past that has stopped you, that has confronted you, that has basically said, you're not good enough. You're too dark. You're too white. You're too short. You're too fat. Who are you to be making such a big difference on this planet? And it's such a powerful force. It actually stops you dead in your tracks. Many of my clients come to me in that. So she came to me in that situation. And what happens is, in order for you to clear this and really to bust through it and jump up to the very next level, what it's going to take, exactly, the inner critic, what it's going to take, blocking my own way toward Heidi, definitely reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about it. What it's going to take, here's how you do it. I took her through the overview method. And in my methodology, where I help you kind of uncover these voices, I want you to think of what it is. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of love. I'm a bad person. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. Those are all the voices of the imposter syndrome, dark passenger. And what you want to do is go back to your earliest memory. Go back to when you were 3, when your parents got divorced, or when your father left at 5, or when your uncle touched you in the wrong places, or, I don't mean to be, I don't mean to be cynical, and I don't mean to be rude. I'm just saying I've worked with hundreds of people, and these stories pop up when I regress them back to their earliest memories of when that imposter syndrome voice came up. And what you want to do is to take that whole experience and to reframe it so that you weren't the victim. Reframe it so that it actually served your vision, your mission, the highest version of your reality. And you do that with the right amount of questions, by asking the right question. Each one of us have that within us. We just haven't been taught to ask the right question. How did it serve me? Where was the other side? Where was I feeling greater than other people? And quite often, what's shown and demonstrated is this feeling of unworthiness and not good enough is paralleled right next to an unwavering belief that you're better than other people. And that might surprise you, but it's actually true. It was mind-blowing to that individual who I was working with, and she completely turned it around. Her business and impact has like multiplied. I'm just watching going, wow, I can't believe, how quickly things can turn around. And I'm so honored to be part of that. Another story of unworthiness, imposter syndrome, came with this chiropractor from Minnesota who just constantly had this belief that he wasn't good enough, not worthy of love, and he was stuck in his practice, not really wanting to move up. If you're feeling that, you'll be able to relate. If you're stuck where you are, you really want to move up, you want to level up, you want to take that step, but there's that void, there's that fear, there's that what the hell is going to happen on that other side, there's that going into the forest and not really having a guide. What's going to happen if I go into that feeling? He was there. And he basically, I asked him what's going on. He goes, all my life I had this belief that I wasn't good enough. I'm not worthy of love. And when we went into overview, it turned out he always actually thought he was better than other people. He was raised a Christian. I'm not saying all Christians, but he actually owned up to the fact that he thought he was more moral. He thought he was more godly than other people. He thought he was smarter, more educated because of his profession. And so when we cut to the truth, this imposter syndrome, quite often, which is my second point to share with you, is an actual pendulum balancing out your inner critic. Is a pendulum actually balancing out your inner superiority. Is this feeling deep within you that you're actually better than other people? Admit it. You're not the only one. I've had that too. Believe it or not, I get that lesson every time I get that imposter syndrome. I always ask myself the question, where do I actually feel I'm better than other people? And what I discovered was that this imposter syndrome, not only is it there to keep me, constantly working to improve myself and know that there is no finish line in this beautiful game of life, but actually to keep me humble from that part of me that actually thinks, man, I got my shit together and I am so much better than other people. Do you know what I'm talking about? Holler if you actually get what I'm sharing, because this imposter syndrome is blocking you from actually stepping up and serving, which is the third point that I wanted to share, is that who is losing out because you're too afraid to step up. And yes, you might not have, as much of experience as the other guy. You might not think that, you have as much money as another entrepreneur or this other doctor, chiropractor who's down the street, who's doing so much better than you that you just love to compare yourself to. But here's the question. We are in a world, a planet, in case you haven't noticed, in case you haven't been looking at the news feeds, everything triggers everybody because everybody's in such a high state of cortisol and adrenaline in their bloodstream. In other words, stress hormones are running rampant through the human beings' minds and bodies. And we need you. We need you to step up and serve. We need you to give yourself a permission to actually step up and say, holy crap, like I can actually step up and I can be of value to the humanity. Karen, absolutely. I'm excited to be sharing this. For those of you who wanted to know, I'm going to be in Brisbane, Australia in 1 month doing the overview experience, showing people how to clear their dark passenger, their little inner critic, their voice, and how to change your relationship with it. Because I got news for you guys. That little voice in your head that thinks it's not worthy, that thinks it's not good enough, ain't freaking going anywhere. It's going nowhere. It will always be there. And the key is to change your relationship with it so that when it shows up, you can turn within and then step into your greater version, but by turning within. But what most of us do is we try to sedate ourselves from the fact that we're not stepping up and serving and playing bigger. We take drugs, we take medication, we drink, and we do everything that we can so that we can actually avoid the fear or deal with the harsh feelings that we're not stepping up and we're not serving to our full potential, because that little imposter syndrome saying you're not good enough is pulling you back down. And because you're not fighting it and you're not stepping through into the fear, crossing that bridge of fear, that realization that we have causes us to need to sedate ourselves. I know it all too well. Sedate myself with sex, sedate myself with pot, sedate myself with partying, and whatever it is that we use in order to deal with the fact that we're not stepping up. Well, I'm inviting you to step up. There's many ways of doing it. When you're going into the forest, it's important to have an Obi-Wan, somebody that can actually help you, guide you through that forest, who's been where you've been, who gets where you are and where you would love to go. Walter, absolutely. Coping mechanisms are critical. What to do when you're triggered. It is important. There are tools out there. I teach them in my workshops. I'm going to be in Toronto at the Overview Experience in October 15th weekend. Around then, I'm not sure exactly when. I'm going to be in Brisbane, Australia, showing people live how to master this for themselves, and London, UK in the weekend of December 2nd. It's going to be off the chain. It's going to be so much fun to get into a group of people and everybody shares their imposter syndrome, dark passenger, and by the end of it, we have a completely different relationship with it, knowing exactly what to do when you get triggered, when things come up. Why? So that you can step up and serve and play bigger, because there's people out there who need you. There's people out there who are struggling and suffering because they haven't heard your story. They haven't heard that they can be helped. There is billions of people out there who need you. And so I would love if you would give yourself permission. Here's a little permission slip here I got right there. I can write you a little permission slip here to give yourself permission to step up through your fears, through your I'm not enough, through your I'm not worthy of love, and actually step up and play a bigger game. Who is suffering in your sphere of influence because you're playing small? I guarantee your kids are, because they don't get to see the highest version of you. I guarantee that your clients aren't getting your top, your maximum. And there are ways to do it. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's work. But I don't know anything more worthy of it. Talk to any chiropractor, body worker, massage therapist, naturopath, nutritionist who's been in their profession more than a decade, and they will tell you how important the mindset is, and their beliefs about themselves, and their opinions of themselves, and how they're talking to themselves, how they're occurring to themselves, how they're interacting with other people, whether their relationships are intact or broken down. That plays a huge impact on how you feel about yourself. And so that's why I created a program to actually help people transform it. And people are completely changing. That chiropractor from Minnesota I spoke to, after 30 days, had the highest grossing month of his career after we changed the relationship with that imposter syndrome. He's now stepping up. He's beaming. His relationships have completely transformed. In my situation, I always thought to myself, who am I to step up on stage and then share? Who am I? I'm this brown guy who raps in a chiropractic profession that is completely whitewashed. And they told me, they said, before you go to the UK, they're not going to take the rapping very well. So you better kind of keep that under wraps. And I said, okay. And I had those fears. I sat down, I did the work, stepped up. 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning, I started with a rap, rousing standing ovation, because I had the tools to be able to step up through the imposter syndrome, to slay the dragons as you're here on this planet for a very short period of time. So I am absolutely delighted to be able to help people, to be that Obi-Wan, as I've had many along that path, to be the guide. I'm the guide on the side now. I used to only want to be the sage on the stage. Now I love being the guide on the side, who just loves to help people with their imposter syndrome and dark passenger. Number one is make peace with that inner critic from the past. Number two is realize that your pendulum is swinging from probably self-righteousness, and that's when imposter syndrome comes up, because when you're truly serving, you are this hollow reed that is like a clear channel through which universal force, God's love, you're channeling love to others. There's no comparison to other people, thinking you're not worthy because you're too busy serving. And so if your pendulum is swinging towards one side of thinking you're self-righteous and greater than, chances are that inner critic is going to show up to keep you centered. So recognize that. And number three, get some help. Get some strategic feedback. Don't do it alone, because who is suffering because you're not stepping up? So I'm offering a couple people, send me a private message if you're wanting to have a conversation. There's no charge for this conversation. I want to see what game that you're not playing because of this imposter syndrome, and how serious you are about playing that game and actually quelling those voices in your head so that you can play bigger. And I'm here to serve, and I look forward to crossing paths with you somewhere on this planet. Come join us in the, send me a private message, and we'll get you set up as one of the 20 seats available in the Overview Experience Toronto, Brisbane, Australia, or London, UK. And I'd love to dance with you. Bring your dancing shoes. Bring your heart, an open heart and open mind, and be prepared to go deep into your darkness so you can overcome your imposter syndrome and have a shifted relationship with your dark passenger. I want to leave you with a little rap, because a lot of times this dark passenger and imposter syndrome, if unchecked, leads to depression. And what people do is they turn to pills. So I want you to send some love, send some hearts as I'm sharing this, because I got this amazing little rap that I wanted to share with you, and it really is the foundation of my message. And basically says, pills don't teach skills. You gotta look inside if you want to find the answer to your ills. Pills don't teach skills. Covering the truth in exchange for your dollar bills. I said pills don't teach skills. You gotta look inside if you want to find the answer to your ills. Pills don't teach skills. Covering the truth in exchange for your dollar bills. Peace out, and I'll see you at the next perfect time. Please tag someone and share this with somebody who needs it, and join the Art of Powerful Alignment. Let's continue the conversation, folks. Mad love.